Hello, Dr. Bloom. Uh, this is Cameron Flowers, my final exam. So my PowerPoint presentation was about HBCUs, current or anachronism, an investigative study on how HBCUs are needed in this current educational era. So I'm going to go through a lot about what HBCUs stand for, how they were founded, the purpose of it. So let's get into it. So I initially start off with the HBCU's key values. So we're looking at tradition and legacy, family feel of a family environment, network, civil and social empowerment, social justice, and history. Some of the current HBCUs across the country are Jackson State University. They just got a big addition to their athletic staff of football with a famous football player joining their coaching staff. Clark Atlanta University, Texas Southern University, Florida A&M, North Carolina A&T, Alabama Spelman College, Grambling State, Howard University, and Alcorn State University. So let's first start out, what exactly is an HBCU? HBCUs are a source of accomplishment and great pride for the African American community as well as the entire nation. The Higher Education Act of 1965, as amended, defines an HBCU as any historically Black college or university that was established prior to 1964, whose principal mission was and is the education of Black Americans, and that is accredited by a nationally recognized accrediting agency or association determined by the Secretary of Education to be a reliable authority as to the quality of training offered or is according to such an agency or association, making reasonable progress toward accreditation. HBCUs offer all students, regardless of race, an opportunity to develop their skills and talents. These institutions train young people who go on to serve domestically and internationally in the professions as entrepreneurs in the public and private sectors. So what exactly is anachronism? An error in chronology. Anachronism is an error of chronological misplacing of persons, events, objects, or customs regarding each other. It refers to anything that is out of time, is, and out of place. So are HBCUs current? Are they old? Are they outdated? Are they not needed no more? Why do they still exist? Are the questions that we are constantly asking ourselves within this presentation. So what exactly is this anachronistic theory around HBCUs? So the anachronistic theory around HBCUs is that they are deemed as relics in a post-racial society. Some believe that HBCUs are outdated and are relatively not required, seeing that education is not based on race, ethnicity, sexuality, or creed anymore. Tertiary education or higher education is seen as accessible to all races. The initial purpose of an HBCU was deemed as void in this point of view, as they were used to provide education to marginalized, segregated, and underprivileged people, which apparently is no longer the case. Look closely at the word apparently. In a society that is apparently inclusive, notice the quotes, HBCUs are seen as being too sheltered and stunts the growth of students from being prepared for the real world. So this anachronistic theory is that because, we're following the constitutional rights of the United States and that all men are created equal, all men deserve education, a quality education is that, public schools, private schools, charter schools, and the ability to get financial aid to pursue tertiary education. Yes, this may all be true. Yes, change has occurred, progress has occurred, especially for the marginalized and minorities of the society. However, in this current social justice heightened climate where we're seeing constant police brutality, a systematic indulgence in racism throughout the society, it is quite clear that we still need the pillars of our educational foundation of Blacks being able to be educated at the tertiary level. They're still needed because you have parents that may want to safeguard and send their children to safe havens that they know they're going to be the majority. They're not going to be the minority. They're going to be subject to racism. They're not going to be subject to a white teacher or a white professor who doesn't understand the cultural background or the demographics of the student and causes them to stunt growth or depression or worse. So his anorexic theory can be proven, maybe, but through the rest of his presentation, you'll see me prove it to be something that's wrong. So let's go into it. So the HBCU dynamic. So HBCUs are presumed to be the pillars of the Black community in terms of education. HBCUs value tradition and create a family-thrilled environment that is concentrated to empowering students in research, fine arts, and all forms of tertiary education. Historically, Black colleges and universities have an important role in the African-American community as schools that first gave Black students the opportunity to obtain higher education when virtually no other colleges would. Today, HBCUs are still the integral part of the Black higher education experience in the United States. And this guide looks at the importance of these colleges, both in the past, present, as well as where they're headed in the future. So I want to take a jump back to when virtually no all other colleges would. To me, this is something very imposing of a problem. It's a bit of a conundrum. So my thing is, if white institutions were not allowing Black students to back then to be able to pursue a tertiary level of education based on color and segregation laws, why should Blacks turn a blind eye, or minority students turn a blind eye and not continue to reward the institutions that first gave them the ability to pursue education at a higher level? So to me, the anachronistic theory that these institutions are no longer needed is redundant, because if something gave me the opportunity initially, why would I consistently try and go against something that was a breakthrough for a whole marginalized set of people? So that's something to keep into context while we push forward. So the next one is the graduation and retention rates for HBCUs. So at the top of the list is Spelman College with a 67%. Howard University with a 42.3%, Hampton University with a 41.2%, Bennett College 28.1%, Xavier College, and so on. So the reason why I put this here, we're going to go in further in depth into this right here. Usually HBCUs are disdained for their graduation and retention rates. Low retention and graduation rates are usually used as a catalyst to nestle HBCUs into predominantly white institutional systems. Factors that contribute to low retention and graduation rates are inadequate recruitment in the admissions process, rising college costs, the student loan crisis, budget cuts from federal funding, which results in fewer resources, as well as an internal leadership problems. So, but what I mean by internal leadership problems may be the Board of Regents may have a debacle and fire the university president out of no apparent reason. Leadership might not be fluid and not be connecting with each other. So it's a lot of internal institutional problems that can be fixed that usually contribute to graduation retention rates, as well as the other list I mentioned. I also talked about HBCUs being catalyzed into these and nestled into these predominantly white institutional systems like the A&M system. So your Prairie View A&M University, who's under the A&M system, Alabama A&M, who's under the Texas A&M system, University of Houston was trying to get TSU at one point, University of Texas was trying to get TSU at one point. So I have these systems that understand that Black students want to attend Black HBCUs, but they sometimes apparently deem to be inadequate if a for-profit or a system is not attached to the culture that comes with an HBCU. So we have to be careful of large PWI institutions coming up and buying Black prosperous educational institutions. So arguments against HBCUs. Critics have called them a race-based anachronism. The word again. HBCUs are inferior or are in need of a new mission and should be managed by for-profit entities or university system. HBCUs are poorly managed or are in economic turmoil. HBCUs shelter students and stunt the intellectual growth of its students. Possess low retention and graduation rates as seen prior to. Boards are incompetent. They're deemed as party schools. Degrees are not notable and prestigious in terms of the hiring process. So in terms of the HBCUs poorly managed are in economic turmoil, you have a lot of HBCUs that lose their accreditation, or alumni aren't able to financially back the institutions, which they are forced to then either close and lose their accreditation or go into a system where the system funds money into the institution. Um, the common concept that HBCUs shelter students and stunt the intellectual growth of its students. So normally majority of HBCUs, well, not majority, but a good number of HBCU students are that attend HBCUs are normally students that are at risk, may not be that intellectually sound, or they just chose HBCUs because of the tradition and culture. But there are some students that need the added attention, and the good thing about HBCUs is that they offer it. But we're sometimes, because we're so fixated on this lack of diversity per se, which is an argument that is for another time because it's essentially not true. This concept is that educated and white employers believe that if you've been to an HBCU your whole life, then you can't survive in a different racial climate. So that's where that initial argument comes from. Party schools, yes, you have your homecoming, you have your spring fest, you have your hump night, etc., etc. However, this is a part of the tradition and family feel of an HBCU, which makes their environment so conducive for freedom of expression, academic freedom, etc. So these are all arguments against HBCUs that can be proven to be accurate at most universities, and sometimes majority of the times, but can also be proven incorrect with depending on your sample size of students that attend HBCUs that you do your survey or research upon. Boards are incompetent. So particularly board of regents or board of trustees, whichever one it is, can sometimes stunt the growth of a university based on politics, based on favoritism, based on what they deem is right, but necessarily probably isn't right for the university. An instance that caused a lot of controversy was the firing of Dr. Lane, which happened last year. Being executive vice president, I was in the thick of it, so I saw how a board could fire a university president, which may not seem as something serious, but it's a common trend that the rate of university presidents, especially at HBCUs, are lessening drastically. So they're going from 10 years to 8 years to now 3 and 4 years. So is it based on incompetent boards, or is it based on universities like HBCUs requiring changes? So that's interesting concepts to look at always. If that's so. Texas University just had 3 new board members appointed. Dr. Mary Evans Sias, who's former Kentucky State University president. She's very decorated and very educated. So I am hoping that she can bring some new life to the Board of Regents. So yeah, degrees are not as notable or as prestigious in terms of the hiring process. So if I'm Texas from Texas University, I'm going up for a position from a person from Duke University, Clemson University, or the University of Texas, then my degree may not be as strong or pull as much weight as that from a person that's been to an Ivy League school, because most HBCU universities have a low retention rate, and the acceptance rate is really high. Whereas with University of Texas, they only accept a selected few from a slimmer pool of prestigious or high-ranking individuals. So, but that's sometimes not the case. There are many outliers in terms of the education process. Arguments for HBCUs. Minority becomes the majority, which allows for freedom of expression and academic freedom, offers focused academic assistance and mentoring programs for at-risk students. So like at Texas University, the Summer of Success program, was used, especially under Dr. Lane's tenure, as a way to increase enrollment for students who are not deemed as college ready, to allow them to get extra help, get some college credits, to allow them to be to firmly uh, admit themselves into the college lifestyle and prepare them for their freshman year. So this is the next thing that shows HBCUs really care, faculty care, and university leadership is focused on trying to increase enrollment for these institutions, and also try and get students who may not have seen themselves as being college students can become college graduates, which to me is the overall goal of education. Taking someone who thought their potential was so limited, who thought themselves as something lesser, and making them realize and optimize that potential that they initially had all along. HBCUs provide a cultural affirming and psychological supportive environment that is conducive for, like I said, academic freedom, freedom of expression, intellectual growth, maturity, and leadership skills. Less competitive financial aid packages, fewer resources for students, and a less flexible, comprehensive curriculum. So this is arguments against HBCUs that I missed and placed here. Develops leadership skills, professional skills, and other networking strategies. This develops students in a. It's good to develop students inside the classroom, but also outside the classroom as well. Faculty at many HBCUs is strikingly diverse, meaning you have faculty from Asia, Europe, the Bahamas, Jamaica, etc., etc. So your faculty is diverse and offer different learning styles to contribute to the overall growth of its student body. Data shows that historically Black colleges and universities contribute significantly to the Black middle class and the nation's economy. So we're seeing that continual theme of HBCUs being a pillar in the Black community and the pillar in the Black market and the pillar in the sustenance of American society in its entirety. Why HBCUs are still needed. Although times have changed where Black students are allowed to attend any institution where they meet all necessary requirements, racial equality, discrimination, and social justice still exists. Initially, the HBCU climate develops leadership skills, networking skills, and is known for teaching more outside the classroom than in it. Relationships between faculty and students are strong as students are seen by their name and not a number. Additionally, parents and students use HBCUs as a safe havens to protect but also groom these students in the values of tradition, family, and history, which helps these students realize their true potential and when they understand the history of the university and the prominent individuals that graduate from these universities. HBCUs are probably even more important today than ever before. These institutions were created to allow recently emancipated slaves an opportunity to pursue higher education. While times have changed, HBCUs remain relevant, said Elwood L. Robinson, Chancellor of Winston-Salem State University. Our value is an HBCU experience. We provide a culture of a caring and culture of a caring that of a caring culture that prepares students to contribute to their communities, a culture that builds confidence and that gives them the essential skills they need to cultivate a career. That is a culture that is good for everyone, can help bridge the academic achievement gap that exists in America today. That was an excellent perspective by Chancellor Robinson, and it was something that resonated with me. So I thought I would share that within my presentation. So some of the notable HBCU graduates, Kamala Harris, is the vice president Democratic candidate for this upcoming election. Spike Lee, Michael Strahan, TSU alum, Yolanda Adams, TSU alum. HBCU extracurricular activities, significance of homecoming, in terms of building unity and social engagement with the community around the universities and its alumni, joining the alumni with the current students. The significance of homecoming within these HBCUs are tremendous in terms of trying to build a strong alumni connection. Yes, it may be limited in that usually HBCUs enrollment numbers are not large, so they don't have a large scale and a large network that they're able to break into. But the connections that they do make are strong relationships that are usually beneficial to the student body. Summer bridge programs, like I mentioned, SOS was a program under Dr. Lane that was excessive in allowing students who are not college ready to be able to be conditionally accepted and do prerequisite courses in order to be fully admitted into the university. The significance of fraternities and sororities. Whereas most fraternities and sororities were founded at predominantly white institutions, my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, was founded in Indiana University. However, they play a pivotal role in, again, alumni relations within HBCUs, tradition and family, and values that are usually pushed to push students. The fundamental purpose of my fraternity is achievement, and we constantly hold each brother accountable to meet those goals. And if the significance of a fraternity and sorority, especially in the HBCU climate where it's the majority, it's seen as something so rewardable, and it pushes good student life, an activity of that is conducive for the maturation and growth of HBCU students. My references, as you can tell. So I really enjoyed doing this presentation. It taught me a lot about the fundamental purpose of HBCUs. Keeping in mind, when I came from the Bahamas over here to study at the tertiary level, I did not know the difference of what a PWI was, and I didn't know what a HBCU was. Well, going through being an SJA member, executive vice president during my undergraduate career, and being a part of a fraternity, I was the president of my chapter here at Texas University, and being well immersed in the HBCU culture and the added attention that SGA Royal Court and these student affairs leadership positions, the attention that they're looked at in HBCUs in comparison to that of PWIs are very interesting. So to me, it was a comparison I saw. But to end this presentation, HBCUs are still needed. Although progress has been made, HBCUs can accelerate that process of making sure that all students are given an opportunity no matter their color. And in the fight against systematic racism and discrimination, HBCUs hold a strong foundational pillar in the Black community. So I'll leave you with these three questions. Well, two questions. Why do we still study Shakespeare? Why do we still learn about slavery? If we can still learn about Shakespeare and still learn about slavery, then HBCUs still need to exist and still need to flourish. Thank you.